Hello everyone, investment scams rampant. Please vigilant and discerning. Do not trust information from unknown sources. Please make sure recognize two official Capital Securities community, Facebook, Capital Securities, YouTube, Capital Wealth Insights.
Welcome to Q&A Good Night. It's September 16th. I'm analyst Jiang Jida. Like, subscribe, share, and comment with your questions. If I don't have time to answer your questions today, I'll respond to them in tomorrow's class if it's meaningful. Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday. There are still many things, big and small, to share with you this week. Hello to Wei Huan Wanqi, Gao Gang Wang, Ming, Javelin, and ALS Fu. Flying Fish, good evening. Looks like I missed you online yesterday. Erwin Chain, good evening to you too. Now, let's look at today's investment focus as we start the broadcast. The first focus is Milan. Who is Milan? Has Milan quickly taken position? Milan is the person Trump urgently appointed to replace Kugler, who resigned from the Federal Reserve. Milan has a strong background, with a PhD in economics from Harvard and previously serving as chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. His appointment as the new Federal Reserve Governor was fast-tracked through the Senate, and his term may last until January. The impact of his appointment on monetary policy is key, especially as he will likely participate in the Fed's interest rate meeting this Thursday. The meeting's content could have significant effects. Separately, on the trade war, there are some small positives in the recent talks between China and the United States. If they manage to make some progress in a positive direction, it would actually benefit the global economy and trade negotiations between countries because it would become a model for others. So the China-US trade war, at this stage, including the US, the UK, or trade wars involving India, what's their status and why? Coercion and inducement is what Trump is doing, so we must be cautious. The market is worried about swings after new highs, with prices consolidating at high levels and sometimes dropping below the moving average. They bounced above the moving average, fluctuating, and some news came out today. News emerged last night that China's Ministry of Commerce may file an antitrust lawsuit against NVIDIA. The question is how this will impact NVIDIA's future, particularly its H20 chip and other licensed exports to China. Let's focus on the idea of having a rich dad. We all hope to be the second generation of wealth, not the first, because being the first generation is exhausting. But for many of us, the reality is we're the dead generation, burdened with mortgages and car loans, making us the first generation of debt, not wealth. The reason I'm focusing on this rich dad concept is because I'll be discussing two stocks that have their own version of one, a source that continually injects revenue into them. Its own profits and shipments will grow. So, which of these rich dads are actually worth your attention? Today, I'll give you a simple analysis. Also, regarding economic data, everyone should pay attention tonight at 8:30 p.m. There will be several data releases. Here's a quick preview. At 8:30 p.m., we'll have U.S. August retail sales month over month. The previous value was 0.5%. Expected is 0.2%. As long as this data doesn't fall below expectations, or is about the same as before, the market will generally believe the economy isn't heading toward a recession. If tonight's data is slightly better than expected, the economic outlook will be even more positive, because the probability and execution of a rate cut in September. The upcoming Fed rate cut is pretty much a done deal, so economic data in the next few days won't have much impact on the decision. The most important numbers, like employment data including non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate, as well as last week's CPI and PPI inflation data, have already been released. This information is sufficient for the Fed's monetary policy adjustments, making a quarter-point rate cut on September 18th almost certain. Now, the focus for data released at 8:30 shifts. As long as it meets or beats expectations, the market will interpret it as positive for stocks, providing support and showing no economic downturn. Specifically, at 8:30, we'll watch if the retail value meets its 0.2% expectation. Also due is the August import price monthly rate, with its forecast revised down from 0.4% to negative 0.1%. If they go up, it means higher import costs and more pressure on manufacturers. At 8:30, we'll watch for a significant increase in import prices. A sharp increase will also raise inflationary pressure. We'll discuss this 8:30 data. At 9:15, U.S. August industrial production is due. Previous and expected values are negative 0.1%. At 10 o'clock, the NAB housing index is expected at 33 from 32. Both are neutral. Also at 10 o'clock, there are 3 total releases. Another thing is the monthly profit of commercial inventory, which is also announced at 10 o'clock in the evening. The previous value and the expected value are both 0.2%. If the inventory rate is higher, this view is exactly the opposite. If a commercial inventory is higher, for example, if it rises from 0.8% or even exceeds 1% during that period, what does it mean? It means that the manufacturer's inventory pressure is very high. If the inventory pressure is high and sales are not going well, of course, it will have a negative impact on the manufacturer's business profits and revenue. Students tend to interpret the data in a more negative direction, so we'll need to monitor the commercial inventory data at 10 o'clock. The previous value is 0.2%. Don't push it too high. If you do, everyone will worry about inventory and whether sales are slowing down. So, we need to monitor these data from 8:30 p.m. until the monthly retail sales rate is released at 10 p.m. Good night, everyone. Who is this? Phil Law Senator, hello, call this number when you have time. Hello, I don't think I've seen you leave a message. Fortunately, Phil said he's making up for it. Coco Lee, good night, and Grace. Liao and Zhengde, good evening, Hector. Someone mentioned that we just clicked on the English version. The English version is not my English version. Amy May, good evening. I still want to tell everyone that at the beginning, there was also this question. In the English version, everything in the live broadcast was done by AI. Our English is not that good, so there is no way to repeat it. The English version of Conversation International does not have that. Everything is done through AI. So at that time, last week at the Kaohsiung venue, I joked that whether it's a group show or a talk about the Taiwan stock market or the US stock market, in fact, these things may all be explained by AI in the future. In other words, I only need to prepare a speech, or even no speech at all. I just need to ask ChatGPT, Gemini, and SoloPeak about the relevant content. I asked them what are the key points of the recent market conditions. Please summarize the relevant market size from last night to today. I will summarize it for you, and then I will make some revisions and put this data on a list. Why do we give these robots or AIs the same materials? Let them create a list or display of images, sounds, or even a script. In the future, you will see that it may not be Professor Jiang who is directly speaking in the video. We will just sit back and provide the script and text materials to the robots or AI for the display. As for the display, you can speak English, Mandarin, Taiwanese, Japanese, or Korean. So AI is really omnipresent. So in the future, everyone must make good use of AI in their lives. Now AI is just my only tool. We can say that booming to its full potential will likely exceed everyone's imagination. So, if you can focus more on AI in industry, stocks, or even in your work and applications, it will definitely improve your work efficiency. Okay, good evening. And who is this? Good evening, Qianong. Good evening, Jeffrey. And good evening, Marissa. Good evening, Qianong. We may have the Taiwan stock market in the future. After all, some listeners in central and southern Taiwan may have grandparents who may not understand Mandarin, Just like my grandparents back in their time, they just can't understand Mandarin when you speak it. You have to speak Taiwanese. If you speak Taiwanese, they'll understand, but if you speak Mandarin, they won't recognize it. So you have to speak Taiwanese. I think there's a market for that too, so you can switch to whatever language or accent you need. That's what I wanted to share with everyone regarding the economic data. Let's discuss Official Bullard, one of the 11 Federal Reserve presidents and a candidate for the top position who spoke today. He was president of the St. Louis Federal Reserve from 2008 to 2023. A Federal Reserve president heads a regional bank, unlike the Fed chair. He's now the dean of Purdue University's business school. He believes that the Federal Reserve should maintain the conditions for low inflation and also must protect the Fed's own independence. If these conditions are met, he would be interested in serving as chairman of the Federal Reserve. Of course, he's interested. I'm interested. You're interested. It depends on whether Trump or DeSantis likes him. He also mentioned an important point. Before the end of this year, he believes there should be a 75 basis point rate cut, about 0.75%, or roughly 3 rate cuts. So he thinks cutting rates 3 times before year-end would be reasonable. He also believes the tariffs' impact on inflation is temporary, so his arguments are in line with the views of Trump and Bessent. As for becoming the next Fed chair, the chances are slim. After all, he stepped down as Fed chair in 2023 to become a business school dean. Since he's now in the private sector, the likelihood of him returning to a Fed position is quite low. The higher probability is with Lisa Waller or economic advisor Hassett. As for Milan, let me briefly mention him. Today, she was confirmed by the Senate with a vote of 48 to 47, along with related board nominations. The market is now wondering if she can make it in time for the Federal Reserve meeting scheduled for the 16th and 17th. Following the meeting, the latest monetary policy actions will be announced at 2 a.m. on the 18th, Taiwan time. If she's confirmed in time, she can join the meeting. After Senate confirmation, there are still administrative procedures like paperwork and the swearing in. Historically, the fastest this has taken is 4 business days. However, this time is expected to be much faster, so it should. Milan might attend the meeting on the 16th or 17th, but with mixed information in the market, her attendance is unconfirmed. If she can make it then, when the interest rate decision is announced on the 18th, she will probably be the one to vote in favor of a rate cut. She should cast her vote for a rate cut, since after all, she was appointed by Trump, which means that within the entire Federal Reserve. Within the entire FOMC, there are about 12 members with voting rights. This includes the chair, the vice chair, and 5 governors, plus the New York Fed's permanent voting member, like Williams. Then, out of the 12 rotating regional presidents, 4 are selected, so in total there are about 8 members with voting rights. Among these 8, currently, the sitting governors Waller and Bowman, and if Milan joins this time, at least 3 governors would support a rate cut, at least 3. As for the other members, their stances vary. Some are more dovish, some more hawkish. It's not certain. But overall, I think this will have a significant impact on the Fed's monetary policy operations and direction, because they tend to form a consensus. If out of 12 members, 3 support a rate cut, and then Powell comes out on September 18th and says they're keeping rates unchanged, but 3 people vote against, this will definitely affect the Fed's operational stability and policy execution. Historically, we haven't really seen 3 members casting dissenting votes in a single meeting, at least not recently. So, as things stand, I think a rate cut on September 18th is pretty much a sure thing, especially if Milan joins. It should definitely move toward a rate cut. Right now, With the positive news and rising probability of a rate cut, we can see both Treasury yields and the median rate forecast are being revised downward. The 10-year Treasury yield has dropped to 4%, almost breaking below 4%. Bond yields and bond prices move in opposite directions. With yields now at 4% and the median rate at 3.64%, the expected number of rate cuts is around 2.7. This means before this year ends, perhaps in September, October, or December, a rate cut is possible. We can expect 2 rate cuts, and a third depends on subsequent data. Inflation or employment figures will affect monetary policy for the rest of the year. Good evening, little donkey. Now, let's look at the Ministry of Commerce and International Situation updates. Speaking of which, there's also good news for office workers. This year, a new holiday was approved. September 28th, Teachers' Day, is now a day off. This year, Teachers' Day falls on a Sunday, so the following Monday. Monday, September 29th, is a make-up workday with compensatory time off. The Taiwan stock market will be closed, but the U.S. market will be open. In September and October, there are many holidays and long weekends, including National Day on October 10th, Retrocession Day on the 25th, and the Mid-Autumn Festival. But I want to remind everyone that our show on CUNY One will still go on. As long as the U.S. stock market is open, we will be broadcasting, regardless of any holidays here in Taiwan. Just a reminder, CUNY Good Evening is live as usual, rain or shine, even during typhoons, and also during the upcoming holidays and long weekends. Join us live to interact, or if you can't, remember to watch the replay later. Although this is relatively good news for the holidays, I still hope that everyone can get out and about as much as possible during your time off. I remember last week when we went to Kaohsiung for a talk, and after the talk, that same weekend, I went somewhere to have some fun, not in Kaohsiung, but to Dashi. For those of you in Taipei, you might be more familiar with Dashi Old Street. Actually, the planning there is pretty good, and of course, Dashi is known for things like the Chiang Kai-shek Guest House and many other attractions in the area. Recently, they've renovated a lot of places. Many of the old police dormitories and officials' residences left over from the Japanese colonial era have been restored. Some of these buildings have been renovated into bed and breakfasts or exhibition halls. This is also the birthplace of the famous singer Feng Feifei, and you can find cultural exhibits about her here. Some police stations in Dashi have been renovated, making it a great trip from the Taipei area. Besides the scenery, old street, and food, you can see restored historical sites from the Japanese era, like the Byokyuden and former dormitories, which are all worth visiting. Besides sightseeing and enjoying the scenery, there are 2 things on Dashi Old Street that I think you should try. One, of course, is the famous dried tofu. Dashi's dried tofu is well known. Places like Huang Risiang, Huang de Mu, or Huang de Fang, and Ah Bo's braised dried tofu are all very popular. Of course, if you want to try them, each shop has its own unique flavor and different sauces. Besides dried tofu, there's another thing I highly recommend: malt peanut candy. I think the malt peanut candy is what really surprised me. What is malt peanut candy? It's basically maltose syrup, real maltose, freshly cooked and still warm. They take a big lump of it and put it on freshly ground peanut powder, then start mixing and kneading it, massaging it until it forms into strips or blocks covered in peanut powder. That's what they call maltose peanut candy. I think it's delicious. I don't know if you tried it before, but I really recommend you give it a shot. There are 2 shops you can buy from if you visit Dashi Old Street. One is called Quan Guan, and the other is Kaiji. Quan means all, And guan is like the character for jar or pot, so it's Quan Guan. They've been making malt peanut candy for a long time, and the other shop is Kai Ji. These two shops have a shared history. According to local volunteers, many shops in the area are related, and they said these two, Kai Ji and Quan Guan, have a particular story. Kai Ji is the older shop. Originally, they rented a storefront, but when the lease expired, the landlord decided not to renew it. So Kai Ji had to move out. The landlord then took over the original shop that Kai Ji left behind and opened. Quan Guan peanut candy. That's basically the idea. So, these two shops, the only real difference is their locations. But when it comes to their techniques or flavors, each has its own strengths. Personally, I prefer Quan Guan's malt candy, but everyone has their own favorites. So, I recommend that if you have a holiday coming up, like at the end of September for Teacher's Day break, there's a long October holiday from the Mid-Autumn Festival to National Day. If you're in the north and visit Jeonju, check out Dashi for food, shopping, and historical attractions. Besides historical sites, there's also peanut candy. I mention this because after my late shifts, I often grab a snack. Recently in Dashi, I bought some chewy malt peanut candy to enjoy at home after work. You should go out and explore when you have time. Now, for a brief look at news from the Ministry of Commerce. He said he will further expand tariffs to include more items, such as those related to steel and aluminum. In fact, whether it's August 19th or in the past, continuous tariffs on steel and aluminum from February to August were expanded on August 19th to include wind turbines, bulldozers, railway carriages, furniture, and compressors. From September 16th, new tariffs might be added for more products. While the specific items are unknown, further increases were mentioned. Costs for things like cars, furniture, and packaging will go up. A U.S. Council on Foreign Relations statistics shows a 50% steel and aluminum tariff would increase car production costs by about $2,000. That's roughly 60,000 new Taiwan dollars per car. While the tariff hasn't been fully imposed or expanded, many products like steel, aluminum, and cars are already being taxed before September. Pay attention to possible inflation in the fourth quarter. Inflation may gradually accelerate, and this inflationary pressure could also potentially affect what comes next. Will the Federal Reserve continue to aggressively cut interest rates in October or December? This remains a big question. If a U.S. court rules Trump's global tariffs illegal, inflationary pressure may be reduced. However, if the courts decide the tariffs are legal, inflationary pressure could surge in the fourth quarter. If that happens, consumer spending will decline and manufacturers' profits will be reduced, impacting fourth quarter financial reports or GDP. We will track any subsequent changes. Regarding other tariffs, Trump's announcement that Japan's auto tariff will be reduced to 15% was a message to South Korea, whose auto tariff is 25%. This 10% difference puts major Korean auto exporters like Hyundai and Kia at a disadvantage. The resulting price difference makes Japanese cars more appealing to consumers, putting pressure on South Korea to negotiate better terms with the U.S., just as Japan did. Japan was given $550 billion in investments, while South Korea received about 300 to 350 billion, along with ongoing energy investments. South Korea was also told that with more investment, their tariff could be reduced from 25 to 15%. Regarding U.S.-China trade relations, a glimmer of hope has appeared, which is beneficial for both their stock markets as it allows the deadlock between them to slowly thaw. During recent trade talks in Madrid, they reached a basic consensus on investment barriers and trade promotion. Furthermore, TikTok, owned by ByteDance, is extremely popular among young people in the US, similar to Douyin. Short videos. Whether it's on IG or other platforms, there are tons of short videos that really catch your eye. He said that this time, there's a chance that the whole talk issue might finally be settled. Trump directly said that there's a possibility TikTok could continue operating in the US. Of course, how exactly it will operate, how much of its shares will be American-owned, and whether the content and data can truly protect American consumers and customers. These are things that need to be discussed between him and Xi Jinping. By the way, just to add, today in the US, before the market opened, there was a company that surged more than 3%. Who is it? It's Oracle. Oracle is related to TikTok. Why is Oracle connected to TikTok? Let me add a bit here, because this won't be covered in the upcoming presentation. This time, there are also rumors that if TikTok is going to do some kind of equity split, or even let American companies take over, it's because Trump has always wanted to acquire TikTok. If TikTok is acquired, on one hand, it would make a lot of money, and on the other hand, he's worried that American customers' data might be uploaded to China for use. So he's concerned about American data or personal information flowing to China. Whether it's possible or not, I think to some extent it always happens. Actually, whether it's an American app, a Chinese app, or an app from any country, when you use it, a lot of your personal data basically gets sent out. When you use Facebook, Google, or Siri, your data is sent out. So it's not just China. Products from American companies and others all risk leaking personal information. Honestly, this is an open secret that everyone is aware of. It's just that with TikTok. If the US took over, who would take it on? Which company would cooperate? Oracle was named because it was singled out. They said it might acquire TikTok through cooperation or a merger. This would allow TikTok to continue operating in the US. That's why Oracle stock surged 13% in pre-market trading. Everyone thought they might get to work with or merge with TikTok. We'll see how it plays out, but it involves China and the US. There is currently a chance for this kind of collaborative project to take off high-altitude bungee jumping. Besides bungee jumping at Giflin's in Dashi, there's Dashi dried tofu and Sherman live fish from the reservoir. Next time I'm in Tainan, I'll stay at Giflin's. Tainan has so much delicious food and history that it's always a food tour. Since I'm from Kaohsiung, I often visit Tainan for a couple of days on my way back. And my must-have is the candied fruit from Amping Old Street. I can't remember the exact name, maybe Lin Yongxin or Yongxin candied fruit, but I buy their preserved plums at Amping Old Street. It's a really tasty old shop. Also, Tainan has boiled beef hot pot. The beef soup is also pretty good, and Tainan's eel noodles really taste great. I feel Taipei's eel noodles are just a little bit off, a little bit lacking. Some of it is about the heat control or the aroma from the wok. But in Tainan, some eel noodles or eely noodles, Tainan's food has certain sauces, wok aromas, or seasonings that make it tastier than Taipei's. When I visit, I stroll around old streets like Haiyan Road. But there are too many places to name. There are a lot of delicious peanut candies in Dewan, Tainan. If you have a chance to go to Tainan, you can go for a walk over there. Good night, staff. There are also sago. Good night, sago. It's okay to listen while exercising. Exercising is healthy, and being healthy means you burn calories. Burning calories means you can have a midnight snack because you have something to eat. So eating a little peanut candy after exercising is also good. 영타엑사인 okay, thank you. I often can't remember the name of the store, but I know where it is and where it is located. So every time I go to Amping Old Street, I will buy from Mingjian. That one has milk and is quite delicious. Good trouble, hello and good night. Talking about it, this place has become a food show. In fact, I was thinking if one day Teacher Jiang was not an analyst, I actually think he should open AI talk about food and travel on YouTube because I really enjoy traveling, taking photos, and checking out every county and city, including attractions, culture, and food. I really enjoy traveling. I don't like staying home on holidays, so I love traveling. So, if I weren't an analyst one day, I'd probably become a food blogger. Looking back, of course, I can't do that right now. I need to work hard. A US official said that Trump is actually going to visit the UK, right? The UK is expected to sign a $10 billion agreement, including a lot of cooperation in areas like technology and defense. He talked a lot about it, but just focus on two key points. Their cooperation in technology and defense. That's right. The most important thing is that the two countries might speed up the approval process for building nuclear power plants. In addition, the US will also expand related strategic, not oil, not the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What is the Strategic Reserve? Uranium reserves are very important. Why is uranium important? We always tell everyone that when you look at AI, you must remember that electricity generation will be a very high demand. The world is in great need of electricity. Especially when AI is operating and developing, the electricity consumption is so high that it is terrifying. How will electricity be generated? It will definitely not be generated by wind power or solar power, right? We don't rely on hydropower because it's not enough. If there's not enough electricity, you won't be able to react quickly. So what do you have to rely on? You can only rely on coal-fired power. What about nuclear power? Currently, nuclear power seems to be the most environmentally friendly. As for whether it's safe or not, that's another matter. There's a whole other level of question. If it explodes, it's over. Of course, it's probably more environmentally friendly than coal mines. The power generation is much better. For example, the United States is now actively using electricity and power plants and is constantly thinking about energy development. Because Trump has been telling everyone 2 or 3 months ago that he will actively operate nuclear power generation and replace wind power, solar power, and thermal power generation. So he needs to store related uranium or for power generation. We have told everyone before. After a while, if you want to remember uranium, just look at these two companies. One is called UUUU with 4US, and the other is called UQEC and UUUU. These two companies basically specialize in mining uranium. Their stock prices have almost tripled from July to now, from 5 yuan to 13 yuan, and the other has increased from 5 yuan to around 15 yuan, so it has almost tripled. Minus 3 times. So if there is a direct correlation to right-side energy reserves, you might want to look at UUUU or UEC. You can also look at some power plants, such as VESEG and GEB. You can observe them. I just want to briefly mention that I think Trump's visit to the UK and the expansion of strategic right-side reserves in the United States, as well as AI electricity consumption, will be a big long-term positive for these right-side mining companies and power plants. So everyone should keep this matter and this news in mind. I just mentioned those companies that you can briefly visit. New York crude oil prices are weaker, below the 200-day moving average, and down 0.32% today. August U.S. retail sales data also just came out at a good 0.6%, which is higher than U.S. retail sales exceeded expectations and the previous value, showing steady performance and easing recession concerns. The monthly retail sales rate was better than the expected 0.2% and previous 0.5%. The retail sales control group also performed well at 0.7%, above the expected 0.4% and previous 0.5%. The announced figure was 0.6%, which means the U.S. economy is still solid. This is still more favorable for the U.S. economy and the U.S. stock market. as it shows that there are no concerns about an economic downturn. The U.S. Import Price Index for the month increased to 0.3%. Although higher than expected, it decreased by 0.1 percentage points from the previous value of 0.4. This rise doesn't suggest significantly higher import costs or that import-driven inflation is out of control. So, looking at the data released at 8:30, we believe that the performance of both the monthly retail sales rate and the monthly import price rate still points to a slightly positive outlook for the economy and the stock market. This is how we view it on the positive side. This was at 8:30, and as a reminder, there will be more data coming out at 9:15 and 10 o'clock tonight, including several real estate-related figures and inventory monthly rates that we still need to keep an eye on. Although their importance doesn't quite match that of the retail sales monthly rate, it's still worth monitoring them together. As for earnings reports around September 19th, which is probably Friday, we'll follow up on FedEx's earnings. Of course, I think the most important one will be Micron Technology's report on September 24th. That one is much more significant than FedEx's. Now, moving quickly to the industry side, let's take a look. First, China's regulatory authorities, from last night to today, have repeatedly mentioned that because the US has expanded its export restrictions on semiconductors, China is now complaining that the US is restricting chip exports from companies like Nvidia and AMD to China, not allowing Chinese companies to use them. So, they believe that these companies, whether it's AMD or Nvidia, and this time they specifically named Nvidia, are unable to provide China with products because of constraints imposed by the US government. The use of GPUs infringes upon the rights of Chinese companies. So, will the antitrust investigation against Pfizer pass? Let me first tell you the conclusion. I think the chances of it passing are slim. To be honest, it's slim because antitrust lawsuits usually take a long time to investigate. And then, when the investigation is over and you really want to pay a fine, you have to consider a lot of things, especially now that the Sino-US trade war is still going on. If China were to impose tariffs under the pretext of anti-monopoly at this critical juncture, Trump would definitely not give up. This would then affect the entire technology industry or the trade war, which would not necessarily be a good thing for both countries. So I think this anti-monopoly lawsuit will still be a reminder to everyone last night about this. I think it is a trade war. The trade war is about China using this to negotiate with the US, saying, let's stop fighting each other on trade. If we don't fight, then we won't do anything about antitrust actions against AMD. If we do, the fine Nvidia faces could be 1% to 10% of its sales in China in the previous year, which works out to around $1 billion. I think the chances of this thing passing are really slim at the moment. So, as for Nvidia, although it was slightly affected by the shock yesterday, it was the only one among the 7 giants to close with a decline. Yesterday, 6 of the 7 giants rose, but the only one was MVIA. He is ranked 0.04 by Xiaodai. Fortunately, although Xiaodai, the 50-day military line is still stable, so we still need to check the 50-day military line later. If the 50-day or 20-day moving average can still hold, then there's not much to worry about. At most, it's just a consolidation at a high level, but it's unlikely to see a major crash because fundamentally it's still very strong. Of course, when we talk about Nvidia, we have to mention its son. If there's a rich father, there's usually a rich son, right? Because the father is wealthy, the son usually inherits that wealth. So the father usually takes care of the son. Who is Nvidia's son? It's this company, Coldweaver. We've talked about the 4C concept stocks, and Coldweaver is one of them, along with Coinbase, Circle, and CropTrack. Coldweaver is basically a company that Nvidia has invested in. If I remember correctly, Nvidia increased its investment to a 7% stake, which is worth about $4 billion. So, Nvidia bought about $4 billion worth of Coldweaver shares, and they have a cooperative relationship. Today, news emerged that Nvidia and CoreWeb have signed a $6.3 billion agreement. The deal is set to last until April 2032, which is a long time from now. Right now, it's only 2025, right? So that's about the next 7 years or so. What does this mean for NVIDIA? It means that NVIDIA can buy from CoreWeb as long as CoreWeb is selling. If customers have leftover or unused capacity, like data center capacity, NVIDIA can buy all of it back from CoreWeb. NVIDIA can then use it themselves. So, in short, this means, what does this mean? It guarantees a purchase. CoreWave makes a lot of data center servers, and you want to rent them out. You want to rent your power and computing power to these companies, perhaps Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, or anyone else. How much is used? If there's a shortage of production capacity and there's some excess capacity, then Pfizer has the responsibility, the obligation, and the right to buy it back. In other words, CoreWave will rent out whatever computing power it produces, and any unsold capacity will be bought up. This is like rich dad backing its revenue. Of course, COVID stock price saw a huge surge yesterday, but you should be careful if you're actually trading COVID. As for the company CRWB, I still say the same thing. I just want to tell everyone that you should just look at the hourly chart. When operating on the 4C concept stocks, you don't look at its price-to-earnings ratio or its revenue. It's just a price-to-earnings ratio concept. So if you buy CoreWave, it's because their price-to-earnings ratios are very high. Just look at the hourly key and adjust the K-line on the hourly key. Then you can use the 50-day moving average. The 50-day moving average is probably the green line. As long as the stock price is above the hourly K-line, and the hourly K-line is above the 50-day moving average, and the 50-day moving average is moving up from a decline, then you are on the buying side. Then wait until your stock price falls below the 50-day moving average. As long as it falls below the 50-day moving average, you should run away first. You should probably use a small amount of time to operate, and short in and short out is enough. Let me give you an example. For example, from the end of June to the end of July this year, it was the same. Every time it touched the 50-day moving average, circled in red, it went down. As long as it crossed the 50-day moving average, it would rise for a while. If it fell below it, it would fall for a while. If it fell below the 50-day moving average, it would fall for a while. If it rose again after these two circles, it would rise for a while. So now it's just above the 50-day moving average. In other words, if you buy COVID short-term, if it falls below the 50-day moving average one day, just run away first and then talk about it. So trading COVID is very simple, just a technical operation. I just want to add to the fundamentals of the subject matter. With the support of Rich Dad, the stock price has basically performed well. Well, speaking of this, let's talk a bit more about the Rich Dad. That's Musk and NVIDIA. The Rich Dad here refers to COVID's backer, which is NVIDIA and Tesla. You can think of the Rich Dad as Musk. Why is that? Because, as we mentioned, the latest news from last night, remember on our show we talked about how Musk spent $1 billion? That was the latest update last night. And today you probably saw a lot of news articles this morning saying that Musk spent $1 billion to buy Tesla stock, buying 2.57 million shares at prices ranging from $372 to $396, right? And then, besides this, why do we say Musk is like a rich dad? Because actually, yesterday on his own X platform, in the comments on social media, he said that apart from buying these shares, he kept saying he's already back at Tesla, back to his main business, and then, what did he do last Friday? What did he do on Monday? What did he do on Saturday? On Friday, he held all-night meetings with robotics engineers, so nobody slept. While the engineers might have been willing for the money, he kept them in meetings all night, showing little regard for their health. On Saturday, he evaluated the A15 chip technology. And on Monday, he went to the data center to check on transformers and power production. In addition, he called a 12-hour meeting with all Tesla departments to signal he's been working hard on his main business, not politics. On the X platform, he left a message saying, "Daddy is really back." This shows that when a CEO returns to focus on the core business, the stock price and market will favor them. So, the stock's rise isn't just because of $1 billion purchase. The most important thing is his return to the core business. If he can do well with electric cars, robots, and FSD, the stock's performance won't just be a short-term jump like last night's. which could open high and close low. If you have Tesla stock, it might be a good idea to take some profits. As for his performance, we'll have to wait and see. The stock went up 3.56% yesterday, but I must remind everyone that, as we discussed, our technical analysis and algorithms suggest. Aside from technical analysis, consider what Elon Musk did. He bought $1 billion of his company's stock in the price range of $372 to $396. You can treat this as the Musk defense line. Just like the Trump put, this is the Musk put, meaning his defense line is in that price range. If the price drops to or below $372 and you buy, your cost is lower than Musk's. For short-term trading, Musk's buying range of $372 to $396 is a support line. If this support holds, there's no need to worry. However, as the price rises, consider taking profits by selling a portion of your position. In the future, watch what Musk does. If he really holds meetings on Friday, Saturday, and Monday and seriously refocuses on his main business, if he truly returns to it, then the stock price will be higher in the future. But this depends on real improvement in the company's revenue and profits. If that happens, I believe the stock price will rise above its current level. If not, and it's just talk or empty promises, then this $1 billion purchase will only be a short-term positive. But whether it can support Tesla's stock price to keep rising in the long run becomes a big question mark. So, just to be clear, news is just news, and major shareholders buying stock is just that. But for the stock to keep going up, it has to be backed by fundamentals and by the state of the market. Both need to be watched closely. So even with this good news, I still want to remind everyone to pay attention to these related issues. Let's also take a look at this. There's still a bit of time. It's 45 minutes in. Oh, I might not have enough time to finish talking about it. This is some information I wanted to share with everyone today, but we might not have enough time. Just take a quick look. Trump is saying that he's calling on companies to stop issuing quarterly reports and instead switch to issuing semi-annual reports. His argument is that if a company issues frequent and high-volume quarterly reports, it might discourage the company's CEOs or management from focusing on the long term, which would affect their managers' long-term management. Why? Because every time a quarterly report is released, everyone keeps checking it to see if there are favorable and unfavorable periods and what the outlook is for the next quarter. Investors and investment institutions in the market tend to focus on the short term. He believes that short-term focus is unfriendly to company managers, and that constantly issuing quarterly reports might increase the company's costs. This argument is actually supported by people like the CEO of Nasdaq, Warren Buffett, and Elon Musk. Of course, he supports the argument. Buffett believes that if you issue quarterly reports too frequently, many companies may engage in inappropriate behavior to make the reports look good. Being able to beautify the quarterly report and the financial report may prevent these CEOs or founders from focusing on the long-term business trend structure. This includes people like Musk. He also believes that under the development of continuous quarterly reports in the short term, there may be some correct practices in the short term, but in the long run, there may be some wrong decisions. As for fellow investors and classmates, what do you think about this matter? Do you want to issue a quarterly report every time and then review the performance of the company in each quarterly report? Or do you want to be like Trump, but by Thomas, and think that you may issue a semi-annual report once every 6 months? This approach has both advantages and disadvantages. So, classmates, you can also thank everyone for their ideas. Do you think that quarterly reports should be issued continuously and fixed quarterly reports should be issued like this? Or as he said, issue them once every 6 months and then look at the medium and long-term trends? Which one is better? You can also write down your opinions. Okay. In the pre-market, Oracle is up 4.45%. This is related to the TikTok acquisition, as Oracle might collaborate with them. Also, Hershey is up 2.3% in pre-market trading, and Prologis and Tesla are both up about 1.67%. Companies like Micron, Broadcom, and Alphabet are up between 1.3 and 1.4% in pre-market trading, and overall, major US tech giants are showing stable performance. On the downside, Trade Desk is down 3.78% before the market opens. Datadog, Warner Brothers, and Paramount Global are also down, dropping between 1.3 and 1.9% due to uncertainty surrounding news of strategic alliances and mergers. For the U.S. stock indices, the Dow Jones is holding above the 20 and 50-day moving averages, continuing its upward trend. Yesterday, it saw a slight increase of 0.1%, maintaining its trend along the monthly moving average. While large-cap Dow stocks like financials and healthcare are relatively stable, tech stocks in the Nasdaq and S&P 500 continue hitting new highs. For Taiwan-related interests, this is an area to watch closely. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, or SOX, rose 0.97% yesterday, hitting a new high while holding strong above the 20 and 50-day moving averages. This suggests the Taiwan stock market should also do well. The SOX's rise was supported by gains in companies like Broadcom and TSMC. Additionally, news about cost reductions helped Intel close slightly higher. The Magnificent Seven are also very strong, with their index up nearly 1.95% yesterday. They continue to hit new highs above their quarterly moving averages, showing a strong, multi-core structure. Not much has changed. Yesterday, Nvidia was slightly weaker, dipping 0.04%, while the other six giants rose. Market sentiment and bullish momentum still depend on the Magnificent Seven. The Federal Reserve's interest rate decision is this Thursday, September 18th. A rate cut is almost certain, but what's the outlook for US and Taiwan stocks afterward? Will the cut be 0.25 or 0.5%? And what will the impact be? Tomorrow, September 17th, we'll follow up on monetary policy and discuss the impact of the rate cut's magnitude on the US stock market in our show. That's all for the latest updates before the US market opens. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. We wish you smooth trading and we'll see you tomorrow.
Our company has no improper financial interests in the individual securities recommended or analyzed. The information in this program is for reference only. Investors should make independent judgments, evaluate carefully, and bear their own investment risks. If you don't want to miss the latest market updates, be sure to turn on the notification bell and hit subscribe. In addition, we have plenty of great video content on both Facebook and YouTube. Don't miss out. In our group, we share in-depth explanations of global financial events with you every day.